Well, we're talking about mission trips this morning. George gave us a wonderful presentation. Slides, stuff, raised our awareness of the need of Camp Laiwa and the Gallegos up there. And we're very appreciative of that. We've got another mission trip coming up with that Donna and Jim are planning down to Arizona, and I hope a number of you are considering that ministry, going down and helping those folks. Today I would like to actually present another mission trip. And this one is being spearheaded by a tour guide I don't think you can resist, and that's Paul. He is presenting a mission trip of his own. He wants people to be involved. He wants them to pray. He wants them to give. May even want to send some translators along. At least put together a car wash. Because you can't have a mission trip without a car wash, I'm sure. And so he wants us to be involved in that. And he has some principles that we can learn from this particular mission trip as he begins this talk, as he winds down his letter. He wants us to be involved in reaching out to the world. And so he talks about this particular mission trip. Now, the body of the letter of the book of Romans has ended with verse 13. With that prayer that we have there, Paul is done presenting his message. Now he's sort of wrapping up what he has to conclude with. Now, my letters usually end with sincerely, yours truly, and then my name. And I am sure that Paul's does as well, and so he ends with reference to travel plans. Well, that I guess is all right, but I'm sure the sincerely comes next. No, then he has a request for prayer. I'm sure the sincerely comes next. No, then it's a pray for peace, maybe next. No, it's a commendation of some other people that are working with Paul, maybe next. No, then there's an exhortation to greet one another. I'm sure the sincerely is going to have to follow that, but then it comes the holy kiss. We're going to talk about that soon. Better get ready. I don't know what that means. Maybe the sincerely comes now. But then there's a warning. When does the sincerely happen? And this is not like my letters, my emails nowadays. End times, I always end my letters with an end times speculation about when the world's going to end, don't you? Maybe now. No, then there's a benediction. No, that's not quite right yet. Greetings? No. Another? Now? Now. No, there's not a sincerely. He ends with a doxology. But all of these things are pretty typical of what Paul does at the end of his letters. This one's more involved because there's some people there that he wants to greet, and some people that are working in Rome, and some people that he would like to send to them, and some projects that he has involved. And so he does all of these things as he wraps up his letters. Now, in today's section, Paul's travels are the themes that bind everything together. He wants people to be involved with his trip to Spain. He wants them to know that he has to first go to Jerusalem, and that he hopes to come and visit them, and he involves them through prayer in his travel plans. These particular verses can be divided into three parts. The first part focuses on what he has already done, what he was called to do, and the fact that he has fulfilled that ministry. And then he talks about his future focus, about his plans to go to Spain, and that particular trip. We don't know that he actually made it to Spain. It's kind of fuzzy in the history books about whether he actually made it there or not. This is a picture of a city in Spain, an ancient city in Spain. You can't hardly see it, but that's all right. And then the section concludes with this prayer that the people would be involved in prayer for him as he goes to Jerusalem to deliver this offering, and that there's some dangers involved, and he wants them to be praying for him. So let's back up a little ways and start with verse 14 and talk about Paul's ministry and what he has done in the past, in particular this ministry. And he begins by saying that he's been bold to talk to them. And I think he thinks he's being bold because he really doesn't know these people. And so he's addressing them without having a personal relationship with them. And so he tells them that he has been written to them boldly. Now, Paul has been called upon to convert and strengthen Gentiles. This is his job. This was his job, to go as apostle to the Gentiles, to minister to those particular people. And it reflects what he has said way back in the beginning of the book, where he says, I'm trying to be very diplomatic about this. I don't know you people. I don't know what's going to upset you people. I've heard a few things. I've heard a lot of good things, a couple of negative things, and Paul has been using some tact. And so he uses his tact again, and he reminds them that most of what he's heard about them is good, that they are good people. He compliments them on being full of goodness, complete in knowledge, and competent to instruct one another. But no matter how mature we are in the faith, no matter how far along we've gone in our Christian life, we can still learn some things. And Romans is a great example of that, of going back to the beginning and learn the basics, hearing the basics all over again. When he tells them that they're good, this is actually a fairly rare word, and it means moral goodness of any kind. He's not talking about them being good at cooking or good at basket weaving. They're good moral people. And they are. He's only had to scold them a little bit, indirectly almost, about the relationship between Jews and Gentiles and how we shouldn't lord it over the other and how the strong should take care of the weak and all those kinds of things. It really hasn't been much. It doesn't sound anything like Corinthians, where he's really had to chew them out. So he tells them that they are very good people and that they have been good. He knows that he's not writing to novice believers. He knows that he's not writing to people who need to be taught these basic things. But since he is an apostle to the Gentiles and he's into church planting, he has reminded them of the basics of the faith. And he has written quite boldly on some points because he really doesn't know them and doesn't know how they're going to react. He didn't have to impart any new information. He says that he was reminding the Roman Christians of what they already knew. They'd already read the Bible for Dummies, a book that I think is really quite good. And they already knew this material. And so he says, he's reminded them of that. He tells them that they knew this stuff and that he is just, that they've already known this. But his second excuse for writing is much more important and his excuse for being bold. And that is, it's because he has been an apostle of the Gentiles because of what Christ has done for him. What God has done for him is the reason why he can brag about some of these things. Paul has been given by God this gracious ministry of bringing Gentiles into obedience to God. This has been his job. Not to go to the Jews, not to go to his friends and relatives, but to go to strangers, to go to people who don't know Jesus Christ, never heard about Yahweh, never heard about the God of the Old Testament. His job is to go to those people. That's his ministry. That's his calling. And he's been doing that. And he's been saying that Christ has been involved in all of that. And some of the language he uses is very liturgical. It's very religious kind of language when he talks about this. He calls himself a liturgus. Liturgical, liturgus, you get the idea? It's a word that has very priestly connotations. He's talking about being kind of an Old Testament priest in bringing the Jews to Christ and offering them as a sacrifice, bringing the Gentiles to Christ and offering them as a sacrifice to Jesus Christ. His ministry consists of proclaiming the gospel, which is a priestly function of offering up to God good things. He does so that the offering of the Gentiles might be acceptable. He wants this offering that he brings to God to be accepted. And he tells them that this offering is only acceptable if the Holy Spirit is involved. And so he paints this picture of a priest coming into the temple of God and bringing all of these Gentiles with and says, this is my offering. I'm not bringing to you a goat. I'm not bringing to you a cow. I am bringing all of these people, and this is going to be a pleasing thing to you. These new sacrifices have to be sanctified by the Holy Spirit in order for them to be accepted. God has to be involved in this ministry if Paul is going to accomplish anything that is acceptable to God. We have to have God involved in everything that we do if our ministries are going to be acceptable to God. Because God is the one who has given Paul this service. He can glory in it. He can be proud of it. He can brag about it. He's not bragging about himself. He's not saying that he has done anything great. He is saying God has done all of this, and he gives all the credit to God. Now, boasting is something that you shouldn't do. It's wrong if you're trying to claim credit